Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Duckville here. I should say, I forgot the H there. I have got a vintage StarCraft cast that is going to be coming up today. It has been a little while since I've been able to broadcast one of these. Unfortunately, I'll be completely honest, I totally forgot about it for like a month or so, or maybe 2 months. I was going to try and bring them out every couple of weeks or so, like make it like a tri-weekly thing, like once every 3 weeks or something like that. But yeah, I actually completely forgot about it. I had a lot of live casting to do and that sort of stuff. But anyway, we're going to get back into the thick of it. I've got quite a few interesting replays that I went through. I have a particular site that I go through. It actually should come up in a second, where all of these old replays come from. So, you know, you can also go and have a look at these yourself. But otherwise, if anyone wants me to post them somewhere, then I certainly can. But anyway, this is going to be, I'm going to take you back for quite a while. Vintage StarCraft cast number 2 was in August, I believe it was August 2nd, 2010. So we're gonna jump forward a couple of weeks from that. There you go, there's the site that I got it from. It's actually a really slow site, but yeah, I suppose it's worth mentioning them because they do host quite a bunch of these replays, and it is in Chinese, so I had to sort of navigate my way through. Anyway, let's talk about our players. Down at the bottom left-hand side of our map, Blistering Sands. Post in the comments what you thought of Blistering Sands back in the day. Here's our red Terran player. Now, at the current time, he played for Mouse. It is Morrow. Now, Morrow, he was, of course, a player who loved a bit of Terran, also started bouncing around with Zerg as well, a little bit of, I believe it was just plain race picking, based on the particular matchup that he had, because he didn't like, was it Zerg versus Zerg, or was it, maybe it was TVT. I can't remember. Either way, he was a player who liked to play around with the different races, and one of the very few players who would do that. Now, of course, Terran back in these days was a bit of a, you know, people were very happy with the situation of Terran, and what we're going to see here today is the start of the evolution that actually started to really make Terrans a bit of a force to be reckoned with. Now, Morrow's opponent over on the top right-hand side here, as I'm sure everyone has guessed by now, is our blue Zerg player, known by the name of Sean here, which I think has something to do with Sheth, but it is Idra. And now Idra was, this is taken from, this replay is from IEM in 2011, way back then, sorry, 2010, long time ago. So it is a very old replay, and of course we'll get to see some various things that were different about StarCraft 2 back in those days. So the point of these kinds of videos is actually not necessarily to be just a cast of a wonderful game or something like that. This is also for me to rant on about things that were different back in these days when, you know, things were a little bit easier, perhaps a little bit harder. Who knows? It's all dependent on the situation of the game. But as we can see, Blistering Sands are very a little bit of a frustrating map sometimes. You have a backdoor of destructible rocks. Of course, Dustin Browder excising his power over the maps that were in the early games of StarCraft. Of course, this is one of the very first maps that came out. And as we can see, Morrow is showing us the particular style that started to very much rear its head during the IEM season that year. Well, this particular IEM in general, actually, because it just started to become a very big problem. And you're wondering what that is? It is 3 or 5 racks Reaper. We can actually see that the second and third racks now going down for Morrow. He's going to rally across all of his Reapers together. These guys back in these days, they did not have speed starting out. You had to research speed, which I believe, yeah, he's already done that. So Morrow, this is a particular play that Morrow really brought to the forefront of Terran versus Zerg, and I'm sure to the frustration of many players, it sort of became a very standard kind of way to play Terran versus Zerg, was to you know, just get a bunch of racks out, and as we can see, he's going up to the total of 5, and you just continually bring the racks, the Reapers across the map, and they just do all sorts of havoc because they are very fast. They have these D8 charges, which have now been removed. They do 30 damage against buildings, these particular charges that they throw out there. So this was before they had regen or anything like that. They still, of course, do jump up cliffs, but you know, this is a point where they actually when you start, people started to realize that when you start to really get these guys into big numbers, they can take on large numbers of lings. They can take on roaches as well, which Idra will get started with very soon. Keep in mind, guys, I totally forgot to mention, because this is such an old replay, I suppose the technology when it comes to you know, showing you guys what's going on is a little bit I suppose it's a little bit more primitive. So I don't have access to zoom, some of my drawing tools or anything like that. Obviously, we don't have the cool overlays, nor do we have the name bar up the top. So all these kinds of things, and of course on the production tab, you have no display of the process of how fast the production is going. So you have to kind of make an educated guess as to what is going on. But it certainly did change as the days and the months rolled on. Blizzard started adding in new kinds of things that really helped out those of us doing commentary and these kinds of things. But as you can see, Idra's starting to get some roaches out. But when you have your Reaper count up here, this is 11 Reapers that have now been picked up by Morrow, and as you can see, those D8 charges just tearing apart the hatchery. The lings now coming across. Is Morrow going to be able to get out of this one? It looks like he just will by the skin of his teeth. The Reapers so fast, they're able to catch up with those roaches, do a lot of damage to them, and Idra is in a little bit of a precarious spot just because this is the kind of thing that starts to get out of control. But one thing that he has done really well here is that he cut down the Reaper numbers. You know, at this stage, there would probably be more like, probably sort of 12 to 15, and that's when it gets just more and more troublesome for a Zerg player. So he was able to sacrifice some units to kill off some of the Reapers, but now as we see, Roach speed is on the way, second gas also coming through for Idra, and his drone count at the moment, relatively low for this stage of the game, but this was back in the very early days, as I mentioned, where, you know, one base and two base kind of play was basically all that you would see in StarCraft 2. So the Reapers are now still continuing to harass at the front door. A couple of them are very low at the front, so Morrow needs to be very careful. Back at home for Morrow. More racks are on the way. We can see he's just got these random assortment of buildings just getting together. We can see an orbital flicking over there for Morrow so that he can take his natural. But this is, the Roaches are now really starting to take command here. This is when the Reaper numbers have been cut down to just the 8. A couple of them are very damaged here as well. It gets a little bit more difficult to deal with these Roaches because the Roaches, you know, they're pretty tanky. They do a little bit of damage as well, but we'll see, because there is a little bit of a backdoor entrance here where Morrow was able to get up inside the main base, just trying to draw his opponent away, just trying to spread him very thin so that he can take advantage of that with these very quick Reapers. And now we'll see that Morrow is going to head down here towards the natural base, where he will be able to take out a couple of units, but I don't think he's going to get too much more done. The Roaches are now out in a very large number, and what we'll see is probably that Morrow will, he's going to move out to take his natural base here, and then we'll sort of, go back into a little bit more of a standard kind of game from there. But this kind of play, if I'm sure a lot of people will remember back in the days when this was a very common thing to see, it was just the kind of play where, you know, if it started to spiral out of control, I suppose a bit like a snowball out of control in a way, the Reapers will just tear everything apart, and it just got very annoying for Zerg to deal with this. And this is why Reapers basically got nerfed into obscurity during Wings of Liberty, after this kind of period where people such as Morrow and some of the other Terran players, like TLO at the time was playing Terran, and it just got very hard to try and get these things working. Nice cancel there from Idra to save that Baneling nest. He actually has to rebuild it down at the back, but his drone count now is up to a total of 40, slowly increasing that. But Morrow is keeping up. He's still sitting there at 39 SCVs. He does have stim. We've got combat shields and concussive shells all on the way. So, but as I was saying, this is a point where Terran players are just really starting to dominate in this particular matchup, and it took a little while, but eventually they got nerfed, and basically they got the nerf bat into the seats there, because they just sort of started to never appear in any matchup really. And of course, all that has changed in Heart of the Swarm, where we do have Reapers with speed from start. They regen their health. They don't do as much damage, but they certainly can be great sort of sniping tools, and also for you know, scouting tools as well. So we can see that Idra is attempting to come in and kill off the rest of those Reapers. Does get the majority of them. 2 will survive, but the Marauders and the Marines now coming in. Stim is available. No combat shields though for Morrow, so a lot of his Marines are going down very quickly. The Roaches are slowly starting to pick off some of the units, And Morrow is forced to back off for now, but he does have a lot of rally coming in. Of course, he has a bajillion racks back at home. Yeah, 7 racks are all ready to go. We can see more and more lanes starting to fall through from Idra. He's got 8 on the production tab. Bailing speed is also on the way, and he is starting to push Morrow back. We can see that the Marines and the Marauders are very, very low on health. The Roaches, unfortunately, a little bit stuck behind there, but slowly but surely, Idra is gaining a little bit more control. The problem here is that his economy is, well, it's actually below his opponents. When you factor in mules, you factor in that Morrow actually has 46 SCVs. He'll probably start to set up another command center very soon, but Morrow is in a really good position just purely because of the start of the game. He forced his opponent to sit back, build roaches, not get too many drones and this kind of thing, which means that all of Idra's tech, all of his economy and these kinds of things is a lot further behind. And another problem, which we will have a quick look at, is the map. This particular map has a really sort of awkward structure for Zerg players. Your third base, it's either a gold that's blocked by rocks and you have to take them down, which we all know can be quite annoying to get rid of, or you have a third that is very exposed to the Terran's main base. It's just a short trip with some medevacs over here, or you can come straight through this little choke point. Not to mention, the Zilmaga Tower there does give really good vision across the map. So Idra in a really tough position at this point because he is basically behind in economy. We can see that Morrow is going to set up another command center just across at the gold base, and once he has that up and running, he'll be in a really, really nice economic position. But yeah, it's kind of funny watching these kind of old school games where you really see the differences in playstyles here. Like, you know, in sort of the little bit more modern ZVT, you would rarely see roaches as like a mainstay of the force. It would just be, you know, a lot of lings, a lot of veins, switch over to mutas as well. In fact, of course, that's a very common thing in Heart of the Swarm these days, is that kind of composition. But as we can see, Idra going to switch over into his hive at, where are we? We're at the 16-minute mark. Unfortunately, I don't have the timer up because I believe that wasn't actually available at this time. But going into the old 16-minute hive a little bit later, but he is going to get there eventually off of basically 2 base gas, and of course that's part of the problem with the situation that Idra is in right now. But as you can see, Siege Tech researching now for Morrow, so we will have that coming up. That's right, kids, the Siege Tech was not an easy part of the game that you got for free. You did have to research that. If you jump onto Wings of Liberty on ladder right now, you still have to research that, of course, if you want to play a little bit more old school games. But Morrow is now setting up a little bit of a defensive position here, a couple of bunkers, of course, a lot of marauders. The tank's now starting to come out, and as the medevac and the tank count starts to increase, it's going to get very, very scary for Idra, and he'll have to look for his the particular hive tech play that he'll want to go for. Now, the thing with hive tech in very, very early Wings of Liberty is that it was, if memory serves me right, it was a bit of a situation where players they'd start to get infestors out once Zerg players realize that, hey, fungal growth is actually pretty damn good. Or once players realized that, you know, the infestors were pretty good, it was kind of, other than that, it was kind of like, well, I'm not really sure what to do. So you kind of get like, some people would go for ultras, some would go for broodlords, until later on when the ultra broodlord decision was solved by picking up infestors and broodlords, and that became obviously the big win thing to use. But as you can see, Idra trying to defend a drop back in his main base, plus also attacking at the third base. This is the really hard part about this particular base, is that he's so exposed. There's this tiny choke point here. The map makers back in the day were still trying to figure out what was going on. But now we can see that Idra rolling across with a lot of banelings here. He's got a lot of roaches there as well, but unfortunately the roaches do not do too well when there are a lot of these marauders out. Now that the tanks are starting to come out as well, it gets very, very hard. So Idra is going to have a very tough time trying to get this game together, but he does have an Ultralisk Cavern on the way, very exposed at the third base. I'm a little bit surprised about that. Normally, like, a lot of players at this point started to put a lot of their buildings inside the sort of the main around here, sometimes at the natural. Once you move out to take this third base, it does get picked off quite a lot, and as you can see, he's also going to take the gold. So Idra in a bit of a tough spot right now. His opponent Morrow is starting to pick up the tank count. They've got a lot of Marauders right now. Their upgrades are currently sitting at 0-1. We're very slow with the upgrades back in the day. But Idra has got he's got kind of slow upgrades himself. Just one on the carapace, and it looks as if, yeah, that is pretty much it for when it comes to upgrades here on Blistering Sands. But as you can see, Morrow very well fortified here at his third base with his planetary fortress, ready to pick off anything that comes across with those Ibex cannons that do 40 damage. Of course, a range of 6, and they do a little bit of splash as well. Not many people know. No, some people don't know they do splash. It was kind of weird. But anyway, Morrow's decided he's going to move in right now. We do have a lot of Marauders at the front. We can see the tanks at the back going to provide a little bit of a field of fire, trying to take down some of the infestors. But wonderful fungal growth from Idra, rolling through with the Banes. The fungals hold down the rest of the Bio forces, and despite losing quite a lot of his units, he has now picked off a lot of the tanks, a lot of the units of Morrow, but Morrow's resupply is just incredible. Lots of Marauders, lots of Marines all streaming out of the main base. 5 Marauders, a tank and 4 Marines at a time coming out from the Swedish Terran here, or the Swedish Zerg Terran, I guess you could say. And Idra now about to lose quite a lot of his drones. Those ones are getting slowed down and picked off by the Bio forces, and now Ultras are starting to come out, and these guys are really good. They're really tanky, but unfortunately when you don't have the greatest of upgrades, as we can see, +2 on the carapace, and that's about it, it gets very difficult to make sure that you can utilize them properly. Not to mention the simple fact that this particular map has so many choke points. We've got choke points at the natural, the ramps here as well, all these various bases, as you can see. And with Morrow about to secure his 4th base, I do not think there is too much longer left in this game between these two players, because Idra's starting to lose all of his units here. We can see his unit count is really just basically 5 Ultras, and that's about it. 44 drones are out on the map for our Zerg player, but he is having quite a troublesome time here on Blistering Sands. But I mean, this is a point where that sort of early play with the Reapers, the 5-Rax Reaper, catches out Zerg players and, you know, puts them in a really tough spot. And, it sets them back, and especially when you have troublesome maps like this where the third base is just very hard to take. There are very small distances in between things. As we can see, Morrow is about to pick up his 4th base and will probably be a GG with that. But here we go, possibly the final battle. Morrow setting up a little bit of a bunker here. You might be wondering what those Ultras are doing, butting their heads into the bunker. That is actually their little bonus attack. What was it called? It's called Ram, that's right. Ram, 75 damage against structures, so that was how you tried to bust through buildings as an ultimate. There it is. Got a bit of a hack going on there, just pulverizing through the buildings, but I think it is a little bit too much here for Idra to deal with. Marauders, Marines stemming up, infestors in quite a lot of trouble, burning them down with the rifles of those Marines, and there is the GG. So the really interesting sort of look back on TVZ back in the day, of course, the very powerful strategy of 5-Rax Reaper rearing its ugly head before it got, it sort of fell down the nerf tree and got hit with every stick on the way down. But really interesting look back on those kinds of plays and the strategies used back in the day, and of course the very tedious maps in a way. But I hope you enjoyed Vintage StarCraft number 3. We'll catch you all next time. Yes, of course, if they get fungal, then you're in trouble town, population top. And, as he looks to build up his some of his extra little production facilities here, such as the extra command centers, we've got medevacs and Vikings now starting to pop out.